Hyrule is home to many biomes, from marshes, tundras, deserts, plains, and even to jungles. But one stands out the most. The roar of explosions, rocking the rugged and wild peaks. The searing heat coming off the lava is only normal in this area. For this is Death Mountain, a giant volcano that takes up most of the Eldin region. Infamously the home of the Gorons through many ages, Death Mountain has been seen as an icon for the Zelda series. Yet how much of this mighty mountain do we know? I've got questions that might hold some interesting yet unsolved answers today on... When I ask the question, who lived on Death Mountain, the primary focus I'd like to pinpoint is, who was first? The immediate thought I first had, and likely you, the viewer, was the Gorons. Though this is a rock-solid choice. You see what I did there? I don't believe it to be true. Let's go back to the First Kingdom. In the time of King Rauru, we have a mighty Goron army. Led by Agriston, the Goron Sage of Fire and Rauru's longest-known friend. What is important to notice is though the two are strong friends, Agriston does not state a home on Death Mountain. No Goron city is present. With this too, Age of Imprisonment's map shows that the Gorons are not alone. There is no Rito village, Zora's domain, and likely no Gerudo town. This makes me think that the Gorons don't live on Death Mountain during Rauru's reign, but in it. And within Death Mountain is held the ancient city of Garandia. Garandia, the ancient Goron city and fire temple. This enormous structure stands strong countless ages after Age of Imprisonment. This structure was built long before Age of Imprisonment and is seen as the holy site of the Gorons. The mining themes, the fire and rock all connect to the Gorons and their ways of life. Even after the imprisoning war ended, Zelda came to Agriston one last time to ask for help.
And then sometime later, the Sage of Time, one of the 6 sages, came to me. Her visit would set the Goron's duty in stone.
When Link eventually makes his way to this site, she asks Agriston to help him.
The magic restraining the Demon King will be undone. He will return. When that time comes, a noble swordsman named Link will oppose him. But Link will need help. Lend him your power. Your fire. The Goron's mastery of fire.
Yet this site stands in this era of imprisonment, the age of the First Kingdom. Its weathered stone makes me think that this structure existed long, long ago, likely during the era of Hylia. And though we see an Earth Temple in Skyward Sword, I don't think Garandia is that same site. If I was willing to place a bet, I think the Fire Temple in Ocarina of Time is also Garandia. Though more filled with lava and debris, the design and layout is nearly similar. Both are seen as important sites of the Gorons, and both are places within Death Mountain's crater. I would be willing to believe that if the Fire Temple of Ocarina is Garandia, the way it's presented is likely due to volcanic activity. The rise of lava and dangerous hazards would possibly flood the lowest chambers of the temple, making only certain sections available. Garandia seems to be the birthplace of the Gorons, and I should also note too that they're not just non-binary, but are also created from clay and rock. Likely high pressure and heat is needed to help give life to a Goron, which again brings in not just the mining themes, but the furnaces and lava. With this, I do find it likely that Garandia is also the fire temple of the Time Era, and also was created during the era of Hylia, along with the Earth Temple and Fire Sanctuary above it. But what happened to those structures? Where we see Garandia stands, the other two are long gone. Those two were on Death Mountain, right? So now that we've deduced the Gorons likely originated in Death Mountain, that still brings up the question of who lived on Death Mountain. An important place to look is Skyward Sword. With it being the very beginning game of the story of Hyrule, we don't see anything like we would later down the line. There is no kingdom present. No, Zelda Sky is not a princess. No, her and the hero Sky both did not make the first kingdom. There is no Ganondorf, and there is no Gorons living in the Eldin region. More importantly there is no Death Mountain, at least fully. The Eldin region in Skyward Sword consists of a volcano in the center of the region, named Eldin Volcano, in a higher shelf-like area spilling lava down. The area in the center, Eldin Volcano, holds the Earth Temple. Though discussed earlier, I do not think the Earth Temple is Garandia. I do think it could be the beginning of Goron City. With it being a carved-out cavern around the middle of the volcano, given the passage of time, I can see lava lowering and cooling off, thus making the Earth Temple Goron City. Though I could see this, I do not think the Earth Temple became Goron City. Though what of the lava spilling from the shelf? This area is home to the Fire Sanctuary. Housed on the very peaks of the volcanic region of Eldin, this structure is the spot on the volcano that strikes interest. We notice what looks like to be the peaks of the mountains around the temple. More so on the map, the temple sits on what seems to be a larger volcano. Volcanoes can have more than one hole. There's the main giant hole, the primary vent where an explosion is witnessed, also known as the crater. Debris, magma, smoke, and more erupts from it when active. But there's also smaller vents, ones that are on the flanks or sides of a volcanic mountain. These smaller vents release gases, lava, and debris when the primary crater erupts. Given a real-life example of multi-vented volcanoes, a team of researchers from Hungary and Japan started a study in 2024 about this. The study was how multi-vented volcanoes work, how magma or lava will favor one crater over another for eruption, and how understanding how gas emissions and ground deformations are attributed via muography. I'll put a link in the description because it's a really good read. But where were we with this? I think that Eldin region of Skyward Sword is a multi-vented or multi-crater volcano. A giant volcano with different vents and craters. What we see in Skyward Sword, and Eldin Volcano might actually be a smaller secondary vent, this now makes eyes once again turn to the Fire Sanctuary. The Fire Sanctuary is not just on the peaks, but was likely on the peak. The main primary crater and peak of what would be the largest primary volcanic mountain in Eldin, Death Mountain itself. But again, who lived here? We've deduced the Gorons lived in Death Mountain, but who lived on it? The Magma come to mind, but likely are not it either, as they're primarily burrowers, beings that dig and live underground. So if it isn't the Gorons, or even the Magma, who lived on Eldin's peaks? Who lived on Death Mountain itself? The Fire Sanctuary. The temple on the peak of Eldin's volcanic range. The Fire Sanctuary. The home of Din's flame. The Fire Sanctuary. The home to this mural. The mural shown is of the two gates of time. The one in the Lanero Desert, and the one in Faron. Both shown as used in ancient times by Hylia and her peoples. But what if there was another? Another kept in hiding, to not upset the balance. The Gate of Time is reverted to a slab when it is not active, and looks like an ordinary pillar of stone to most. Yet where was the third gate? What happened to it? And why is the fire sanctuary involved? What if I said that the Rito lived on Death Mountain? What if the Rito were the original holders of Din's power? Crazy? Sure. But what's also crazy is not just the bird motifs of the fire sanctuary, but the Stormwind Arc.
Ah, I think I remember. When a Zonai tumbled, Rito wings gave chase. In thanks for their salvation, the Stormwind Arc was made. A gift given from the Zonai, and the Rito filled with joy. It is an old legend of my people. Could this be that vessel?
A Zonai fell, and the Rito gave chase, and in thanks the Stormwind Arc was born. The Zonai were seen to be as gods to many.
When your Zonai ancestors first descended upon these lands long, long ago, they must have seemed to be gods.
A Zonai fell, and though it's implied as falling from the sky, I like to see this from a different angle. One where fell doesn't mean fallen in a literal sense. I believe this is a case where the Zonai fell in battle. A fallen or wounded Zonai would be seen as a mortal god. And if the Rito saving this wounded god, or Zonai, could be connected somehow, I would like to say that this god was Hylia. I think that Hylia was a Zonai god. A god, but with the presence visually of a Zonai. Her people were born from her and carried on after her. These Zonai were likely the people of the surface in Hylia's time. These Zonai are likely, as my good friends, Laurelian Historian and RevADB both put, the people saved by Hylia. Yes, Sky himself is a Zonai, but a Zonai god? This is what I believe Hylia to be. There's also only one instance of Hylia falling, and that was during the emergence of Demise. Hylia gifted the Rito the Stormwind Arc. This I believe. The Gorons had their home underground, and the Zonai people are now in the skies. All that remains is the fire sanctuary dwellers of Eldin, the Rito. With Hylia now mortally wounded and Demise safely sealed for now, she gifts the Stormwind Arc to the Rito. And after she's passed away, the Rito take the third gate slab and put it on the Stormwind Arc. For a long time, they would hide far out of reach and sight, since the sky is a pretty big place. And with this, we have a possible tie to who lived on Death Mountain. But what of the third Gate of Time slab?
This altar is considered the most holy place in the temple, and it is where we give offerings as part of our prayers for a bountiful, peaceful world. I have heard ancient legends that it could interact with a sacred power, allowing travel back and forth through time. Though, how this was done is a mystery to me.
The Altar of Time, an ordinary-looking stone slab high above the clouds. We know that the Temple of Time was on the surface after Rauru made it, but was sent to the sky when Zelda draconified. We know the altar was in the temple when it was on the ground, and we also see the altar still in its place in the present day in the sky. So what is the Altar of Time? I believe it is the third Gate of Time. I think this slab was the third one kept inside the fire sanctuary and guarded by the Rito on the Stormwind Arc. I believe that in this case, the Rito were the fire sanctuary inhabitants. The Rito helped Hylia in her final moments, thus gifted the Stormwind Arc. The Rito took the third slab, Gate of Time, with them. The Rito, over time, would come to befriend the Zonai and gift them the slab. This slab would be passed down to Rauru and be incorporated into the Temple of Time. The Rito in the end may have been the original dwellers of Death Mountain's peaks. The Rito possibly lived on Death Mountain. Now I can hear the clickety-clack of keys already, most likely asking, how could the Rito live on Death Mountain? Didn't they live in Hebrantha at first? I would like to first say that yes, this is a legit thought and concern. I would like to bring something up that my good friend Zoe, the Dream Shrine, brought to light. What if the Rito lived on both? And I think she's correct on this. Let's take a look at...
An earthquake is the sudden movement of a tectonic plates.
The first thing that comes to mind was Daruk.
That was a little strange. As far as I know, Death Mountain has been quiet for decades. But if the mountain is shivering enough to send down a bunch of boulders that size, then never mind. Forget I said anything.
The activity on Death Mountain can be linked to seismic activity. Volcanoes can erupt when the magma within is highly pressurized. Death Mountain is no different. Seismic activity causing eruptions? There's one cause I could think of, and that's Ganondorf. With the Dwarf Man himself sealed underground for an ungodly amount of time, I'd imagine that he's tapped into the earth itself, and with this, I think he's responsible for the Death Mountain activity. But that's from Age of Imprisonment onwards. What of before? What of the time of Hylia? There's another we can look to. Eldin himself caused volcanic eruptions in his region. In Skyward Sword, Eldin doesn't say why he caused an eruption, but given the context of how we found him, it's very likely that Eldin made the volcanoes erupt due to the monster activity. More monsters means more noise and more movement. Eldin, just like his counterparts, are in charge of their regions. And if something seems off, action is taken. Similar to Faron flooding the woods, Eldin would flood the peaks, but with lava. Given the context, let's roleplay a scenario. It's the ancient past. We live in the era of Hylia. Now you, the viewer, are a Rito on the peaks of Eldin. Your days are carefree while soaring the heights above the heat. You notice one day monsters are about, and there's a lot of them. Eldin was peaceful aside from the rare occasional rock falling, but you find this odd. Suddenly an eruption is caused, and you go to investigate your patron dragon. Eldin himself confirms that he has witnessed monsters and asks your people to flee to the goddess herself, because he fears the eruption you saw was linked to her. And as you and the other Rito fly off to the sealed grounds, you witness that the lava rises and eruptions become more violent. When all the Rito have gathered with Hylia's forces, you notice that the goddess has fallen from battle. She is gravely injured, and using her last breaths carefully, she apologizes to your people for losing their home. She turns to your elder, who has saved an artifact, one that Hylia gifted your people long ago, a stone slab. The slab was carried by a few Rito and a few robots during the flight to Hylia. She instructs that a time will come to your people that you can return and give the slab back to her people. But for now, she asks you to flee far away with the help of a gift, the Stormwind Arc. And so your people leave the borders and fly off, far out of reach until the surface is once more safe again. Maybe you as a Rito on the Stormwind Arc also created the Thunderhead in Skyward Sword. What are our key factors for Eldin erupting? Well, we have a direct link being Eldin himself being able to cause volcanic activity. But another bigger event happened, and that was when Demise emerged from deep below, splitting the earth open. The second point would lead to seismic activity, an initial first eruption within Eldin. This first eruption was likely the one that the Rito noticed before turning to Eldin for advice, and then fleeing as he caused volcanic activity to wipe out monsters. We now get to our next part, one that might be hard to swallow, but Hebra Mountain very likely may have been part of Eldin and the greater Death Mountain chunk. We can 100% attribute this to seismic activity. Earthquakes, plate shifts, and ultra pissed off dudes stuck underground. All of these can lead to the surface experiencing landslides, eruptions, and geographical shifts, which leads me to believe that Hebra Mountain was at one point part of Death Mountain, but was split apart. If true, then we can see the two being closely tied to not just the Rito, but also Din. From the Echoes of Wisdom example, again, big thanks to Zoe the Dream Shrine, we see Death Mountain to the west and Hebra to the east. while in the Era of the Wilds and Tears, Hebra is to the west, and Death Mountain is to the east. This shift, I believe, was caused by seismic activity via Ganondorf. Being sealed away would make him very angry, and so moving mountains seemed like a way to cause turmoil. The Gorons living underground wouldn't seem to mind too much, but would really give the Rito a hard time, thus causing migrations between the two mountains, with seismic activity also being a possible cause for Hebi to move. It's also the likely cause for most volcanic activity. So if one blows, the Rito move and wait. And what would possibly be Hebra Mountain? Well, I'd like to believe it was Eldin Volcano itself, the smaller one in the center of the map. Two mountains with one larger, and to experience multiple earthquakes and plate shifts, I can only assume that over time the two would slowly shift apart more and more. The two would finally be so far apart that during the time of Raru's kingdom and the sealing of Ganondorf, one could think that the two were always like that, but we don't truly see the full extent of the map in Age of Imprisonment. It very likely could be that after Ganondorf was sealed, he was part of the manipulation of plate tectonics and geographical forms. My final piece is about the third Gate of Time slab. For many years since Skyward Sword first released, there has been a small chatter of a possible third gate. I am one to believe it exists, and there might be more than that. This third gate's importance would be similar to the others. I believe they were used for a traversal from one region to another, as to cut out travel times and exhaustion. This also makes me believe that with the sealed ground so close to Faron, that the gate in the sealed temple is the Faron gate. The Lanayru gate was destroyed inside the primal temple of time, but this temple was likely a station, similar to a train or bus platform, a building to go to, get tickets, and wait for your turn to travel. With Eldin thrown into this, the fire sanctuary is high above and littered with lava and hazards around it. I believe the gates were used not only for time travel, but travel from one place to another. This would keep a balance of power among the people too. With quick access to Hylia, they can go to her for advice and worship easily without any hassle of walking or flying. I should note too that there would be a gate in each of the three regions associated with a dragon and golden goddess. And when the gate is in a standby or sleep mode, it's seen as a slab. And though this is just a fun theory, a creative what if, one thing can't be ignored, and that's
Master Sword. How is the Master Sword? You're telling me that Link is safe? You traveled through time to find me and recover your strength.
Thank you for sticking around till the end. Watching this theory vid helps out in so many ways. I don't know how to properly say it, but thanks for being here. As of late, I've started to burn out and fall short on theories. This one is an effort to try and get back into the field. There's a lot of hate out there, a ton of bigotry. People are hurt from it, and it continues on. In the Zelda community in particular, I've seen the toxic waves crashing over nearly all of us. If you've watched or listened until now, understand you are seen, you are heard, you are important, and
You are not alone.
no one can break you down, because no one knows you better than you. And you are a very special person, and I thank you for being here, because it shows you are stronger than before, and can only get even more stronger. So please, keep going, and don't take no shit. And to those who are in that side, Understand I see you and hear you, but other than the intro card disclaimer, this is my last warning. Knock it the fuck off. Thanks! I would once more like to thank my family in the Zelda community, the Laurelian historian himself, my brother LH. Go check him out, links will be below. But if you didn't know, we host a podcast called Deku Scrub Playground. We sit back, chat, and just go to town with Zelda theory crafting. So check it out for more Zelda talk. And if you want even more, oh, I got you covered. This year is my other brother Rev. His series of the First Kingdom, the Founding of Hyrule series, is just so magnificent. Rev takes a deep dive into each of the races and people of Hyrule during their time in the era of founding, and expands on...
You tell me. Spoilers.
I also cannot forget to mention the most brilliant researcher and historian I know when it comes to not just Zelda, but many different things overall. My very good friend Zoe the Dream Shrine herself. Please do go check out her stuff because she's got evidence. She's got guts. She's got so much proof it's 190%. You see what I did there? Proof? It is a joke. But anyways, if you want detailed findings, info, and all good things Zelda that I can't do justice in just one video, please do go check out Zoe. And please be kind to my family here because as I said, I see you, I hear you. Behave.